Welcome to the first LAM of 2026. Can I have a quick show of hands who this is your first LAM? Cool, excellent. Thank you for coming along and engaging in the educational content. It's a really important part of our community. And that's why this one is kind of a start of the year to give you a little bit of a recap, because I recognise some of the faces, but not all of the faces. So I'm willing to bet that some of you have been here for a year, a couple of years, maybe even 5, maybe 10. There's no one here that beats me, because I've been doing this now for almost 20 years. Okay? The event actually started technically in 2004, where basically there were other things going on in London and people said, oh my God, we're not happy with what's going on, there isn't enough space, will you do something different? And I'm like, yeah, but I want to do something very different because I want it to be a community supporting event. I want people to actually contribute some funds so that we can do some of the things we want to do. We want to support all the various courses, and it's got to be educational. We want workshops, we want content, because at the end of the day, we can't assume that all of us arrived on the same day and we're all on the same knowledge curve. We've got to actually educate our community, because as I'm fond of saying, none of you cracked out of an egg knowing all of this shit, okay? It just doesn't happen. There's a fair few people who, you know, oh, I've read 50 Shades of Grey, I know it all. And they don't tend to last very long, okay? Because at the end of the day, this isn't a natural skill set. This isn't being taught in primary schools. You shouldn't be picking up these skills from your parents. If you are, we probably need to have a separate conversation about that. But I do know a few that did, okay? Because they got to a certain age and kind of opened mummy's cupboard wardrobe and found a little bit more in there than they'd anticipated. And equally, genetics, it's a wonderful thing. Apples don't fall too far from the tree, okay? So we actually have multi-generational families within the kink community, and it gets a little bit difficult at times. It's like, we're going to this event this weekend, so you've got all of the other ones on offer. And actually, a few of the parents have got to a certain stage and just gone, you know what, we've had our time, we've had 40 great years, we're now going to leave it to the kids and let them get on with it. So, LAM kind of initially as a concept started in 2004, and I had this great venue. I was going to do it somewhere, I'm just trying to think where I am. St Paul's is over that way. It was round the back of St Paul's, this really great pub, totally enclosed by office buildings on all sides. Great for us, 2 levels, brilliant. Got the agreement with the manager. He said he'd have to check with head office. Didn't happen. So I was in a little bit of a bad mood that December, understandably, and I went to a party and someone goes, what's up with you? You're in a really bad mood today. And I'm like, just lost my venue. Oh, should talk to my husband. Well, who's that? Oh, he works at this venue. And literally by the March of that, the next year, LAM launched in that venue. It was the Clapham Grand at Clapham Junction. Does anyone know that venue? Okay, a couple of nodding heads. It's crazy. On the outside, it's very much a kind of Victorian style building. You go on the inside and it's fuchsia pink and gold, Chinese Oriental inspired interior. Brilliant, absolutely amazing, but grade 3 listed on the inside. So we had to get planning permission to put nails in the wall to hang signs and stuff like that, because they were really quite mad about it. And we ran out of there for a couple of years. The big thing is, it was a theatre, or originally a theatre. So we could stand on stage and talk to everyone in the room simultaneously, which was a hell of a lot of fun. And some of the things we did there pushed the boundary a little bit. In 2007, we did a workshop that we had to stress, please everyone, no photos, no videos, because as of January of next year, this act is going to be illegal to watch, okay? And at that stage, someone stepped onto the stage into a cone of brilliant white light, And then I started producing knives out of my pocket and from under the stage and all over the place. And by the time they'd finished, they were down to their underwear. I'd cut myself up there with a big knife, so I scooped all the blood off and just went down the front of them. Now, although there was no harm to the person, the law was changing, and all of a sudden it was going to become illegal to even own that picture. So we had to get the word out very quickly and say, look, it's a stupid piece of legislation. We hope it'll get appealed. And of course it didn't. Because that's one of the things that LAM really tries to throw some weight and support around, is lobbying and things like that. Now, back in those days, the government were a little bit more ethical about it. And they wrote to us and said, hey, we're going to change the law. We want to do this, public consultation. That all stopped about 10, 12 years ago. All of the legislation that's been passed, literally no one has been consulted over it. And in fact, one of the reasons that changed was the Extreme Pornography Bill, or the Criminal Justice Immigration Act. They stood on TV and said, we've had all of these responses and everyone thinks it's a really great piece of legislation. 350 responses saying it's great. They got the piles wrong. There were 25 that said this is a great piece of legislation, and 350 kinksters, okay? Because everyone that could wrote to their MP, wrote to whoever they could to get the word out, because let's face it, there aren't many members of the public that are going to say, oh yes, those kinksters are allowed to have their unusual spicy pornography. So the whole thing went away at that stage. After a couple of years in that venue, they decided to sell it to a group of South Africans to turn it into a wine bar. And they only told us at 3 o'clock in the afternoon of our last event that we were moving. So that was the first time we were under great pressure to make sure that there was something for next month, because quite frankly, by that stage, we've got people who are going, oh my God, I love LAM. I can dress up in my puppy suit and no one cares. I can dress up as whatever I want and no one cares. So it really became important for us to find a place and get into there as fast as possible. And then about after 18 months, that business went bust, because that was the Walkabout chain. And when they disappeared, we then went on a bit of a movement, and we've moved around various parts of the city. Some venues I've loved. Did anyone come to see us in Revolution Leadenhall? Yeah, that bank vault. I walk into the only venue in London with an Art Deco bank vault, and we turn it into a bondage suite in the evenings, because it was the perfect fit. And we actually operated out of there for about 7 or 8 years until obviously the pandemic in 2020. That was not a time to be running events. It was a little bit difficult. So we decided to go online, and we created LAM Live. And that ran for 56 weeks. Every week for 56. Because there were people that were shielding, had serious medical issues. And at the same time, we didn't want people to drift off from our community. So we had to bring them together and do a virtual version. So if anyone is new and they're going, oh my God, I really want to see a workshop on, go to YouTube, find us, type it in. The chances are it's already there. If it wasn't from the COVID period, then there will be audio recordings of the workshops dating back to about 2016, something like that. And the crazy thing is, they're all recorded in 3-dimensional sound. So if you stick your headphones in, it literally feels like you're in the room, because as I walk up and down past the mic, you can actually get where I'm moving in the room. Unfortunately, Revs didn't survive the pandemic. They went bust. And as they weren't going to get any financing, they dropped that one, which was where they'd meet the investment bankers. And then that moved us across to Covent Garden. We were there for about 12 months, and we've been here for about 6 or 7 months. Okay, so that gives you the past. Across that period of time, we've had births, deaths, marriages, everything you'd imagine over that period of time. But one of the things that we always have this reputation for doing is delivering. Okay? The moment non-essential retail was available in the UK, we were one of the first shops to reopen. In a valley, in a farmer's field on the outskirts of Brighton, because it was the only location I could get to secure everyone. So we took over the whole site, we took over one of the barns, created a one-way traffic shopping market. We were the first to actually have a comedian stand up and tell jokes to the public for about 3 or 4 months. It was just absolutely crazy stuff, but it was kind of what we were all about, because at the end of the day, my promise was to these business owners to give them somewhere to trade every single month. I couldn't do that with COVID, but the moment it became feasible again, I couldn't get bars and nightclubs to open, but God, I could hire fields, beer gardens at swingers clubs. We even had a studio in North London we moved into for a couple of events, because it was important to keep people going. At the end of the day, some people had run out of candles. They'd frayed all their rope. They needed new latex polish. And at the end of the day, our traders needed to be getting back into retail and back into life again. So whenever there are challenges, I like to think that we have a great reputation for rising to it. And equally, we recognise that, you know, standing up and putting your head above the parapet does make you a little bit of a target at times. Very broad shoulders, okay? Across those previous 19 and a half years, I think the highlight of it was the knock on the door on a Thursday morning, 12 police officers and a search warrant. Anyone know what this one was about? Human trafficking for the purposes of sexual exploitation. Now, apparently I'd used the London alternative market to purchase a person and then gave them to someone else who then abused them. As far as I was concerned, they were 2 lesbians in a relationship for about a decade, but God, when it broke up, because she burnt her passport, she had to come up with a fantastic story for getting back to the States, and they believed it. Hook, line and sinker. Now the best part is, they were looking for something called the slave register. Now those that have been around for a little bit of time will know that the slave register was at www.theslaveregister.co.uk. It wasn't a big black leather-bound ledger of every single human being that had been trafficked across Europe. And that's what they came to my house looking for. Okay? I had a good laugh with them that morning, because the search warrant said remove anything that indicates this man's into a BDSM lifestyle. And I looked out the window and went, you guys are going to need a bigger truck. Okay? I'd recommend someone goes and hires a 3.5-ton Luton van now. Because you're going to leave me with the fridge, the freezer, the microwave and the washing machine from the kitchen. And then the rest of the rooms you're going to have to gut and clear. Because I have something like 20 or 30,000 toys in my house. Okay? Been collecting kink stuff for about 30 odd years. It's a big collection. Then they were going to have to go to the lockup and get all of the LAM dungeon furniture. Then they were going to have to drive up to Peterborough and strip a club out of all of their dungeon furniture as well. So, you know, you can take it all, but where are you going to store it all? Because it's an awful lot of material. You haven't thought this through. But there we go. So we've had some ups and downs amongst it, but that's one of the important things. As some of you will have picked up from the Healthy Mental Practices workshop, we can't cheat, we can't influence the hand of cards that we get, but we can damn well make sure that we play them to the best of our abilities. And that's really the ethos of the event from the past. Definitely in the present, because you know what? I need a bigger venue. I need something almost twice the size of this to fit everyone into it. So if any of you know a decent venue, please give me a shout. They've got to be a sensible venue, because some of the ones I've been talking to at the moment, yeah, great idea, love what you're doing, plenty of space. We talk about a couple of grand as the costs and all of that, and then we get a quote for them for £10,000. And they tell us, yeah, you guys have got to provide the bar and the catering as well. and give us 10 grand. And I'm just like, I can't charge you lot £50 a ticket to come shopping at LAM. So, no, we're not going to move to that one. But we will move at some stage in the future because it's too small. I want something bigger. But at the same time, I can't lose my shirt over some of the monthly rents that we're being talked about. So keep your ear to the ground. If you've got any comments or suggestions, please fire them in our direction. But most importantly, make sure you check the address on the tickets each month because at some stage we will move. We will try and give you as much notice as possible, but sometimes we've moved with literally 4 days notice, okay? Because if something happens and we lose a venue, we've usually got a backup one that we will switch across to, or we'll just do something really funky. If the weather's good, we'll just have an outdoor market if we have to, okay? One of the other things that we've been doing across that period and continue to do is that basically about £1 off everyone who comes through the door goes into a slush fund. Now that fund has been used to pay for people's retraining because they lost their job because of kink, or someone needs to learn to drive in order to get a new job. We will help people out with that process. Number of people that, oh my God, I've been really fucking stupid and they're foreclosing on my mortgage, I need a couple of grand like now. It happens much more than you'd think, okay? Where else can you go to when you are down in the dumps and you need some help? You can't turn to a group of kinksters. I don't know what the answer is, okay? 3 days before Christmas, someone's finances were screwed up. Can I borrow 200 quid? No. You can borrow 250 and pay it back when you're ready, okay? Because I didn't want that person on a couple of days before Christmas Eve going into a very difficult situation and thinking, heating on or extra clothes. No, it's Christmas. You want to have the best time that you can. And as it happens, their luck changed a couple of days after Christmas. They ran into some money and they've paid us back, okay? But it's one of those. We are here as a group. We will help wherever we can with people, okay? Because at the end of the day, as I said, kinksters generally understand kinksters, okay? But you can't really, say to your parents a couple of days after Christmas, sorry, I'm feeling a little bit miserable. I haven't worn my puppy hood around the house for a couple of days, okay? They don't understand, okay? My parents certainly don't understand. They don't understand where the hell I came from because neither of them are kinky. They're just like, what the hell, okay? But they also understand it's what makes me happy, okay? At the end of the day, I was actually outed by my older brother, Paul, about 2001. Now, admittedly, I was in Marie Claire running spanking workshops, so if I didn't want to carry the risk, I probably shouldn't have done the article. But I'd seen Mum about a week before, and she'd stopped me in the kitchen on Sunday and said, whatever you're doing that's making you happy, keep doing it. So a week later, when she's like, oh my God, I'll be in the papers, it'll be disrepute and all the rest. I said, remember last Sunday? Yeah. I said, sorry you found out this way. Wasn't my intention. Okay, but this is what makes me happy, and makes a whole bunch of other people happy as well. So I'm going to carry on doing it. Okay. Couple of very hot off the press things for the future. We literally just decided today we're going for a Guinness World Record this year. And you're all invited to take part because it's going to be one of those, the largest number of people simultaneously doing the same thing, okay? So if you have the skills to be able to do this, we will be inviting you along sometime in May. If I can get the Guinness Trust to come along and actually adjudicate and officialise it, I'd like to actually have at least one Guinness World Record out of that day. Okay, and I say one because we've already found the first record that we're going to go for. The second one, Google tells me they're not very keen on it being a record, but I'm going to apply for it anyway, okay? Because I think, the greatest number of simultaneous rope suspensions would be really fucking cool. Okay? I've got a woods, it's 15 acres, it's got plenty of trees. Let's make it happen. Okay?
I can do self-suspension.
You can be in on the crew. I'm going to have a zone for us self-suspension people because I want that to be part of it as well. Okay? So, future, little bit of excitement there because you know what? I think we all deserve to be able to say, I took part in that world record attempt. Okay? And if we can get a big stack of them on one day, then I'm pretty certain that Norris McWhirter, whoever the current adjudicator is, should come along and see what's going on that one. Okay? The good news is that also means there's going to be an additional 2 LAMs this year. Okay? Some of you may know that we do one summer special in collaboration with a club called O&I down in Kent. Going to do 2 this year. Okay? And one is going to be connected with, going for the Guinness records and all the rest. Okay? And it's one of those, we could probably go for the record of the largest number of people fucking simultaneously in a field, but actually I want to go and have some proper kink skills behind it. Okay? If I can pull it off, and I've been working on this for 6 months, there is a venue in southeast London. It's about 8 times the size of this. Okay? We will not be short of stall space ever again. Okay? Because it's huge and across multiple floors. Now, at the moment, there's a church that operates out there on a Sunday, but it's only for an hour or 2. So I'm pushing as hard as I can and pointing out that, you get in a helicopter, you fly across London, there's lots and lots of churchy type buildings, but not many buildings large enough to hold an event like LAM. So I'm going to try and put a little bit of pressure on, some pennies on the table, and see if we can't get that one sorted for this year as well. Okay? Because I do think that, one of the kinkiest cities in the world should really have the largest possible market in the world. We did for a few years, and then we lost that large venue. So we need to find somewhere bigger, see what we can do from there. Okay? So that's the kind of LAM into the future. Yes, it's challenging. The market for venues has just become really crazy since COVID, but that means that we may have to step a little bit further out, but we will find something that is as accessible as possible. And the number one criteria is I need lifts in the building, because actually Leadenhall was great when the disabled lift worked. Sway wasn't very good at all. And this one, when the lift works, it's great, but actually the lift is controlled by the office building above this, not by the venue, and therefore we can only apply pressure to the venue, and it's not getting translated upstairs because they're sitting there going, well, one day a month you're upset about the lift, and we're running 6 floors of offices and no one's complaining. It's just one of those challenges for us. Okay? In an ideal world, yes, every venue would have already been refitted and set up and totally accessible. It's very difficult in this part of London because so many of the buildings are so old and listed that even with the last one, Sway, we're like, great, let's have one of those sweep up accessible ramps on the front. No, front of the building was listed. They couldn't even replace the same lift that they had on the building next door, because when that front was preserved, it was preserved with that 1970s disabled lift in place. They can't change it, they can't do anything with it. It's absolute pain in the arse. Okay? I think that's probably the main bits that I had on my list. Does anyone have any questions about LAM?
What's the other record you want to go for?
I'm trying to keep it under my hat.
You say into a microphone.
Yep. There's only 3 people at the moment who know what the record is.
Okay.
Okay, and one of them was required because they are literally going to be leading the charge. The others give us a week or two and we will announce it. And I wouldn't be too surprised if someone goes, ha! And we're going to do it the month before you. Okay? It's one of those. It's an interesting challenge. It's not the most technically complex of them. So you just have to get the right equipped large number of people together to attempt it. Whereas rope, if we do the rope one, then we're literally going to start planning that 2 or 3 months beforehand to make sure that everyone is skilled enough to do it, that there are points appropriate for that individual. You'll need a point for your self-suspension, and yeah. So it'll be one of those. It'll be a lot of planning and organising, and probably WhatsApp groups to bring everyone together. Okay, but the first one we're going to keep a little bit stum until we're a little bit closer, because it's the easier of the two to potentially do.
I'm down to do weird stuff.
So one of the summer events, which is the August one, is last year's summer one effectively repeated. We're going to put an additional earlier summer event in, which at the moment it's looking like, rather than just being a Sunday, we're going to do a Saturday and a Sunday. Yeah, there'll be an option to camp. There'll be places that you can stay down there in cabins. You can come along for just the day, and we're going to have a kind of fun kink day with potentially these world record attempts on the Saturday, and then a big market on the Sunday. And possibly also on the Saturday, going to say to people, right, okay, here's a really great opportunity. You want to tell us all about being a puppy, don't you? Come along and run a class on being a puppy, and tell us what you enjoy about doing it, because there are so many people in the kink community who want to share. We only have a limited number of slots for workshops each month, so actually having a day where we can say to people, look, do you want to do a puppy play workshop? Brilliant. Is there anything you need to make that work? If we give you a 20 or 30 pound budget, can you get the right stuff for people to play with? Do you want to do one on flogging? Do you need some budget? Do you need some kit? So we'll help the speakers so that they're not out of pocket, and obviously the speakers can stay for the whole weekend and enjoy themselves and all the rest of it. Because the one thing that I've learned over the last 20 years is, if you want to learn something from a kinkster, pay him a compliment first. Oh my God, that was amazing. You really enjoyed it. If I buy you a drink, can you talk to me about it? Every fucking time. Okay? As long as you're not asking them in the middle of what they're doing, it's going to happen. Okay? Because at the end of the day, you don't dress like that on a whim. Okay? It's a commitment. Yeah? Okay? Your puppyhood, when you saw it, you knew that was your puppyhood, and you had to simply have it, and you couldn't let it go. Exactly. And it's getting that passion for subjects across with people, because, as we all remember from school, we learn from enthusiastic people, and the teacher that sits there going, and the Latin exercise for today is a mo, a mat, a martem, a matem, a may. How the fuck I still remember that as a mystery. But I remember it in the context of my Latin teacher was just dry. I mean, just seriously not the person you wanted to get into a conversation with, because neurodiverse, extremely, before we all knew that kind of that was the acceptable reason for that behaviour, as opposed to they're just weird. But there we go. I get the weird most of the time, and then people, the penny finally drops and they go, oh, yeah, there you go. Makes a lot of sense. So there will be the August one, which will be the redo of the last year's big one, and then there'll be an additional 2-dayer that will get slipped in a little bit earlier in the year. This particular one is going to be at a site called Eureka in Kent, which is about a 27-acre naturist site down near Forkham Green. Okay, You can get there on the train, and I think they charge a fiver to get you from the station up to the club. 27 acres, about 17 of it is wooded. I mean, how often do you get to chase someone through the woods? They have sub hunts down there and all sorts, so it's a really great space to go and play and enjoy.
More often than you think.
What's that?
I said I'm a loafer more often than you think.
Yeah. I mean, okay, in a kinky context, okay? I guarantee you, if you get your leathers on and you start trying to chase someone around Nottingham, Sherwood Forest in Nottingham, not going to last very long, okay? Private grounds, so we can get away with doing what we want to do. And if we actually throw some sporting events, there is actually a swimming pool, so we can have the full gambit of water sports as opposed to, the limited kind that we sometimes engage in. Okay? So yes, but the details of that will come out in the next couple of months. If you're not already subscribed on the LAM newsletters, I would recommend you do so, because that's one of the first places that we will put stuff and information out to. Okay. Any other questions? No? Oh.
How have you seen the community evolve in the past 20 years?
Fuck. Okay. Right. I'm quite blunt, so please forgive some of what I'm going to say here. When I first started going clubbing, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I was one of the youngest people in the room by about a decade. And it was very much an older, middle class pursuit and activity. Okay? If you were female and young, oh my God, you were welcomed in. But if you were male, a little bit more suspicious. Now, that was great in terms of creating a community where people could play hard because everyone was protecting everyone. Okay? We all knew and understood that you can't take a picture because if it leaked out onto social media and someone saw it, they'd lose their job. So everyone was a lot more respectful, a lot more understanding, a lot more protective. Not so much supportive as a loving community, very much lots of little islands and camps and tribes, for want of a better word. Over the years, it's expanded. There was a phase prior to 50 Shades of Gobshite where everything was fetish in the adverts. So you remember that Oasis crush drink where there were two people on leather wheels being spun together and they were literally being crushed like fruit. So all of these imageries were coming out and bubbling up to the surface. Tesco's had an advert in Soho where there was a human puppy chained up outside Tesco's. And it was just this whole concept of pop in for something on your way home, chain the dog up outside. And they literally went with that as advertising. Then 50 Shades came along and we had this almighty tsunami where all of a sudden everyone decided that we were going to get into bondage and kink. And basically what happened was the number of first-time event people that would turn up at LAM workshops got scary. And in those days, we had capacity for about 75 in the room, and we were literally running double sessions some months because there were just so many people. Now, the problem with that level of expansion is that the scene its core couldn't grow with it. So all of a sudden, for every one person who was prepared to stand and teach, there weren't 4 or 5 people waiting, there were 20 or 30. And it was a very taxing period of time because the books aren't well written and they really don't explain the fact that, certain activities are a little bit more dangerous than others and you don't want to go, I finished all 3 books, let me now do a suspension. Okay? So it was a difficult time. A lot of those initial people didn't last very long, which is actually great because if you come into this and realise it's not for you, fuck off and clear out quickly. Okay? Because it's not going to change. The community is not going to become vanilla just because no. This is our space to do our thing. and therefore kink will always take the priority. It's calmed down a lot now. I think that initial expansion has contracted a little bit. But at the same time, all of a sudden, the rest of the adult world that used to shun us, and literally you turn up, go to maybe walk into a swingers club wearing leather, "Ooh, you're not one of those people that beats people, are you?" And very judgmental shit and attitudes, okay? The problem is, they all read 50 Shades. So they now wanted fetish theme parties. And some of them embraced it and went, "Hey, this is fucking great." And others were like, "Oh my God, he's beating her half to death over there. Listen to the noises she's making." And it's like, yeah, she's giggling. Yeah? Every time he hits her, she giggles harder. Surely if it was painful, she'd be screaming, you know? But there we go. So we've developed more of a stable footing and finding. Some clubs want fetish theme nights, but they don't want too much play. And other clubs have kind of turned around and said, you know what, actually, if we're going to have a fetish night, you should be able to play and play within the rules of the venue and play within the consent of the relationships. Outside of that, we let you off and do what you want. Sorry. So yes, it was like riding over Niagara Falls in the thimble at times. But I'm kind of glad we've got there because in the wider context, kink is no longer this deeply dark and deviant thing that only a few people do because of the popularity of the books. So if we'd had a chance to redo it, I'd have probably corrected some of the grammatical errors in the book myself. I tried to read a page of it one day and I'm like, that doesn't say what it's supposed to say. The words are the wrong way around. And I'm dyslexic and I got pissed off with it. But outside of that, yes, it felt like a nightmare at the start, but it was an essential part of the growth of the scene.
I was just saying, do you think it was causation or correlation? Do you think 50 Shades caused that shift, or did it just come out at a time of that shift?
It caused it. And the reason we know it's that way around is that before it became big in the UK, there was a soft release in New York. And I had a guy who knows I'm kinky, but we work in the same industry. And he rang me up and he said, "For fuck's sake, mate, I need your help. What's up?" 6mm hemp rope. There's none of it in the whole of the state of New York. I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, that book's come out, it's gone wildfire." And I'm like, "What book? What book?" 50 Shades. "How do you not know about it?" And I'm just like, what the fuck? So we were literally having to buy rope in the UK to ship to people in the States because they didn't have enough rope available in the state of New York. So it was a good time and it was well timed to come out because of the imagery and the adverts and all the rest. We were definitely working up to a point of more kink acceptability, but that just blew the lid off the whole thing very, very quickly. And yeah, the number of people were like, yeah, we've read 50 Shades and we've come out to explore. Very open and honest about it. My younger brother's wife said that 50 Shades saved their marriage. Marriage didn't last very long, admittedly, but yeah, turns out she was a real obstinate individual until she'd read that book. And then all of a sudden, you know, ooh, okay, brothers, is there any connection in here? And I'm like, he didn't hatch out of the same egg as me. Not got my knowledge, but he can be taught. And in fact, as their wedding present, I gave them a violet wand. Not in front of the rest of the family. But yes, it was one of those, like, he picked it up, he'd heard about it, but where he lives, they're just not available. So I'm like, there you go, and this is how you use it, and this is the fun you can do with it. And I believe he still uses it with his new partner, which I'm pleased about. But there we go. So yes, it was one of those rare moments where it pretty much catalysed a lot of that growth and activity. If we hadn't had it, yes, something probably would have come in its play, but equally the ones that have tried to come in afterwards have all fallen flat on their ass. Someone I know was offered an advance from a big publishing house in the UK to write the next version of 50 Shades. And they wrote it, and they sent it into the publishing house, and the publishing house sent it back and said, no, this isn't 50 Shades of Grey, this is pornography, we can't publish it. Oops! Problem is, she'd gone and told everyone she was the new author of the new version of 50 Shades of Grey. So a couple of months later, the request came out on the internet. Does anyone know how to sue a publishing house for not publishing the book that they've commissioned? And I'm like, yeah, it can't be done. Just one of those. If they don't want to publish the book and they've paid you an advance to write the book, they take the loss on the head. They're not going to want to publish it. In fact, they own the book. It's never going to see the light of day again. But there we go. All fun and games. Right, okay, so I really like preaching to the perverted because it's a